is waiting. Let's get it on. It's all presented. All wins along.
Just reading that Drake and Kanye.
Thanks for coming on and welcome back to the show, everybody. I know it's been a minute. Life's been kind of crazy. We have Brin Alexander on the podcast, big fan from Whistler, up and coming Canadian border and doing all things right. Thanks for coming on. How you been?
Dude, great, man. Thanks for having me again. Yeah. Been good. It's winter's starting, kicking off, trying to get things together here, fix the sled up a bit, and yeah, just hype for some more snow to fall.
On that note, what did you fix on the sled?
Oh God, it's pretty much everything. Like me and Will split a sled 2 years ago, and we've ridden it maybe over like 100 days up there now. And we really have put almost no maintenance into it. So it's like the computer's busted, the skis are pretty much gone. The rear end is like ripped out from trying to tow gear up the mountain. Like, yeah, there's a pretty endless list of it, but got to do some clutch stuff and yeah, just kind of clean the whole thing together. And exhaust is destroyed too. Yeah, it's a long list.
100 days though, like at this point, does the sled owe you much? I feel like it's
not at all.
Job.
Oh man, it's insane. Like for a lot of stories, you know, I mean, obviously you have buddies that break their stuff and shit just happens out there, right? So you can't really expect it to last that long. And we've been pretty lucky for sure with what we got.
What
Definitely
year? What sled? What's the year?
It's like a 2014, I think, 800 Summit XP. Got it from Cody's dad, which was like huge. So we've been bringing it down to their shop, and we'll always like kind of look around for graveyard parts and whatnot we can pull out of their old sleds and put in ours. Yeah.
And how are you? You guys split the sled. I don't know what he does for work, but like, how are you? Like, sledding is so expensive and frustrating because there's always just those $1,000 bills that are just flying into that snowmobile.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly kind of been sick that we did split it, especially because Will, he works for Cody's dad, like doing does like sled guiding and stuff. So he like knew a lot more about him than I did when I first started. So that helped a lot because most of the time, I mean, it sucks doubling up every day, but most of the time when you're up there, you need to double anyway to board, right? So it just ends up working out good.
He sounds like he's a good partner in crime because my dad from a young age was always like, you don't split expensive things with people because, you know, that's how you burn a friendship. You know, somebody wants to do something. And it seems to me like it's been pretty headache free.
Yeah, dude, it's honestly been pretty sick. And like we've had a sled for 2 years and I literally just bought the first sled ramp we've ever owned like yesterday.
What? How did you load it before the ramp?
Oh man, it was crazy. Like we would like build ramps. We would try and find like ditches. He would like pit his truck in the ditch and we just pull in through there. Like it was just, and then we left it we just left it in Brandywine for a bunch last year. Like we would just drive it down and then just stash it on the side of the road. Show up the next day, just pull off. Pretty funny, man.
The ramp is key. I kind of lucked out last year. Someone in Squamish stole my ramp, and whoever did that, you sick son of a bitch. I hate you.
That's
someone stole my ramp, man. I was so bummed, and all my friends were calling me out, being like, "You just misplaced it, man. Classic Jody move." And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something, everybody. This got stolen, and you know it did. Luckily, my boy Jake Kuzik, who's you know, somewhat he kind of transferred into you know, he does do some backcountry, but primarily a street rail rider. He has the extra sled ramp, and he donated it to me, so I got a new ramp.
Dude, that's dialed. I didn't even know he would like be a dude to have the sled ramp.
I know. Sick. He had dude, Kuzik had a truck, sled, and ramp like way back in the day. And one time he did the classic. He knew Tacoma at that point, like 5 years old or something like that. But for a kid in Whistler, like big purchase. And he launched his sled off the ramp onto the back of his truck. And he called me freaking out. He's like, dude, I launched my snowmobile on top of my truck. And I was like, oh, like trying not to laugh because you're like, holy shit. Like,
Dude, well, it's gnarly, right? Like, fuck, even like with the old kale stitch, like loading the sled is one of the scariest parts of the day, dude. Like when he like ripped his nose off, like that shit happens. Like it's not, oh, it's terrifying, man.
you gotta like, a lot of people get loose, you know what I mean? They get comfortable
Yeah.
with loading the sled with the ramp. And then one day the skag on the bottom of the sled is bent and it throws the ramp sideways, collapses the tailgate, and you drive your sled into the back of your truck in the
Shit.
parking lot. And there's like 100 people looking at you being like, look at that idiot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've done it on multiple times. And I'm telling you, the tip is you got to use the tie down, and you go from the bottom, like where you would
Like
put
the
a hitch
hitch,
in
right?
for your truck.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Boom. Tie
I
down.
have had a couple
there.
buddies show me that. So that's definitely the way to keep it safe. And I mean, it's never worth, like, whatever, worst case scenario, never worth ripping your nose off to just not put a ratchet strap on your truck, right?
Whoever this is Cale Stevens for those who don't know. He ripped his nose off on a sled,
legend.
but like, yeah, total legend. But like his plastic surgeon did such a good job because like
you wouldn't even know.
like, he's still a good looking guy, man, and he got his face ripped off.
It's so crazy, man, so crazy.
You touched base before we got onto this sled banter here that you were out in Mexico. What brought you to Mexico?
Yeah, well, realistically, just my dad, man. My dad is just like a go-getter. He turned 63 out there, but he's like still just an animal. He's constantly trying to do stuff. So he has some buddies that live out there. They've been there for like 9 years. It's actually this stunt couple. They're both like stunt people. So they're like a gnarly couple. And they just go out there and surf a bunch and hang out. They got a sick place. So we went there and visited them, and then kind of went to surf though. That was like my main objective. I was like, I want to go, like, because I suck at surfing. Like I've been like twice on the island and I just can't, like, I don't know. I can get up, but I can't, like, I want to learn how to ride a shortboard and like do some turns, you know what I mean? So we went out there, surfed for a few days, but the surf in the town was kind of just flat. I guess they get bad surf in Sayulita in the winter. I'm not 100% sure why. So we ended up going there, and I brought a skateboard and skated around a bit. And then we were like rock climbing a bunch because my dad's super about rock climbing. So we would like go down to the beach and climb a bit, and went on like some trips out to these islands and saw some whales and jumped off some cliffs into the ocean, you know, just kind of like classic vacation with Dave. Like that's what my dad just loves doing. So it was pretty sick.
So not so much surf. You didn't dial in your surf, but you did rock climb with these two other stunt couple, and your dad, Dave, who's like the ultimate stunt man. Maybe touch base on that for people who don't know. You got a little bit of a background, or your dad's a stunt man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. He's like, he's one of like the older kind of, it's like a pretty cliquey thing. So like all the old stunt people kind of know each other. And like, man, he's done some gnarly stuff, like just massive cliff jumps, and does a lot of mountain work and like river guiding work. And oh man, it's insane. Like even back in the day, he used to be the Sasquatch in the old Kokanee commercials.
Yes, really?
Dude, so sick. So he's like
up on those.
I'm like watching these commercials when I'm a kid, and my dad's like, check it out, like that's me. And he gets like lassoed by a cowboy running away in a Sasquatch suit. And that's his job, you know? So yeah, it's just like such an epic thing. And then that's obviously how I got into it as well. I just kind of followed my dad's footsteps, and he let me know. Yeah, he let me in pretty much, because it's a pretty niche thing. Like it's a cliquey crew of people that do it. So once you're in, you're kind of in.
And this couple that you went to Mexico with, they also do stunt, and your dad's based out of Vancouver. Are they based out of Vancouver as well? Or?
Yeah, for sure. Like the one girl, Laura Lee is her name, and she actually did a ton of work in LA, because that's obviously like LA is where the big stuff goes on. So if you're like really high end, doing it a lot, got the cat here, doing it a lot. Yeah, she was just in LA chilling. She used to be like a professional rollerblader, like kind of like full old school, like 4 wheels on the on the skate, and she was like gnarly. Like she was showing me videos for her doing backflips and shit out of the bowl and like just full on. And they're both like crazy drivers. Like the dude Dwayne has done like the Baja races and all that kind of stuff. Just like gnarly couple for sure.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go into like being a stunt man or a stunt woman, you're clearly kind of gnarly, but you're not like stunt people are at least calculated. You know what I mean? You're not like this like
Oh
burden
yeah,
on society getting like worked. You know, you actually have to be coordinated and pretty good at stunting. You know what I mean? Like I look at my friends who suck at stunting and they just wouldn't make it in the stunt world because they would just get absolutely destroyed. You actually have to be
yeah,
good and
for
like
sure.
calculated and stuff, especially if you're going to have, like you said, your dad's had like a long career of doing that line of work. You actually have to be pretty dialed.
Oh man, yeah. Like when it comes to my dad, I'm honestly like, I'm like lucky that dude is like, he's got so many insane stories that just like blow my mind. And like, I'm like, man, you're 63 and you're just killing it so hard. Like if I can make it to that, dude, like that's just the goal. Like that guy is so legendary. And it does happen. Like people do get really messed up doing stunts. Like the odd occasion they go wrong or something, and like, man, like, yeah, super gnarly stuff happens. So it's definitely good to kind of recognize what your levels are in the situations. And like, I do a lot of the rigging side of stuff as well. So I'll be like kind of working, setting up stunts one day, and then I'll do the stunts the next day. So it's nice to like, I like understand what I'm, attached to if I'm got on like a crazy line that's going to shoot me into the air. I like kind of know where the forces are coming from and how it's going to work, which is also a huge tip for that kind of stuff, to like stay safe.
Yeah, totally. It's nice to actually like have a fully like an understanding of how everything's working. So if something's not
Yeah,
working, you can maybe mitigate that risk by being like, oh, it's probably tugging on this. Maybe I can escape this how, or I don't know.
exactly. It's like snowboarding, right? Like it's definitely more sketchy to have someone ride a gnarly line that doesn't know anything about like what could happen or what situations they've been in before, whereas if you have someone like, I don't know, like Rasmus or someone that's actually been in the mountains a ton, they obviously understand like what to look for if there is some sort of like bad haps going on,
Totally agree there.
easily
And
recognizable.
you mentioned that your dad has been maybe dodging some bullets and you're happy that he's made it to 63. And I could say we all are, but does he have any stories that stick out to you that you like kind of remember him sharing and being like, holy shit, that story is insane?
Oh man, there's just so many. It's almost hard to like think of one, but I mean, even this summer we climbed there's like a route up the Chief called the Buttress, and it's like a pretty generic route that you do to like do the whole Chief. So you start on this one climb, it's called Deadri. It's like pretty easy, like 5'8", 5'9", but I remember we got there and we climbed it, and then after he's just telling me about how he used to just do it with no rope all the time, like when they were just kids. And he would like sleep under the bottom of the Chief in these little caves, like way before it was even developed in Squamish, And they're just like climbing these huge climbs that I'm like scared to climb now with like gear that you're putting in. And like, cause like in Squamish, you climb a lot of this, it's called traditional climbing, where it's not like you don't clip a bolt with a carabiner. You actually like put your like steel nuts and different cam pieces we get, and you like stick them into the crack. And that's what holds you. So even doing that is terrifying, like for me. And then he's just saying like, well, I used to climb this with no rope, so it's like no big deal. And then you're just like, it's totally mind blowing when you're in that situation, so exposed and madness. And like, yeah, he's definitely got some gnarly old stories, like swimming in rivers with like full leather cowboy suits on, and they're just sinking like fucking, some of the stunt people are drowning, and they're, oh, we'll do another take. Like, yeah, man, it's pretty insane for sure. But nowadays the stunt stuff is definitely it's more like put together and safe. They have way more people involved, and there is more of like back in the day, he was just like, oh, we just say we do whatever. They ask you if you can ride a horse, say you ride a horse. Like they ask you if you like river raft, you're just like, hell yeah, I do that. Like no worries, But nowadays they tend to choose people that are fitting for the jobs they want, right?
Totally. They're like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna get like a climber, you're gonna get a climber. If you're gonna get you need a skier for the James Bond movie, you're gonna get the James Bond movie.
Yeah, like they go top of the line these days, right? Like they'll get like as much of a professional as they can to do the stunt they need, as opposed to back in the day, there was like maybe 10 dudes in Vancouver that were working stunts, and everyone's just saying they can do anything because it's like just the way it was back then. It was so cowboy, you know, it's pretty sick.
Totally. They're probably like, Jeff, you did the swim shoot last time. We know you can't swim. Like
Yeah, exactly.
You keep lying, dude. You're not good at swimming.
He's like, oh, but I'll go do a course tomorrow and I'll be fine the next day, you know. But yeah, they're pretty on it these days. Keeps it safe for sure.
I was just on a trip to Baldface doing Pat Moore's risk maturity avalanche and first aid course, and we were there with a friend of yours and a friend of mine now, and I'm grateful to call him a friend, John Buffrey, absolute legend.
Oh yeah.
He also works on movie shoots, that a movie shoot will hire him to mitigate the risk that's going on. And sure enough, he was doing a shoot this summer, and he shared this story of a stunt double for a car commercial, I believe. And end of the day, they got all the shots that they needed, and without asking the safety crew, the filmers and they were like, let's just squeak in this last shoot. And they got like this girl to swim down this river in this really dangerous spot, and she almost drowned, and Buff saved her. And he was I think he was pretty livid about the situation, because it could have easily been avoided, because there's that time of the day where they weren't trying to get that shot. They didn't ask the safety crew. They're just trying to squeak it through. And I just thought it's funny because, you know, you're saying that your dad's living in the wild, wild west, but, you know, even still to today, you know, 30, 40 years later, there's still these incidences that are happening on these shoots because, you know, there's just someone wants to get the job done. They're like, let's just squeak this last shot in. Maybe they didn't have like, you know, a lot of details on that part of the river, but Buff had made it seem like that type of accident happens at that point of the river, or it's really prone to happening because it's a certain depth where the swimmer's ankles can go in between the rocks really easily. And I didn't know this, but he was saying that like when you're doing kayaking and water activities on like a body of water that's moving real quick, if it's shallow water, your limbs can get trapped and then you just drown because you can't move. And I've never thought about that before. And we've done so many like super sketchy swims back in the day with like, you know, rapids with like the worst raft ever. And, you know,
yeah. Oh, I even remember seeing like, I think it was like Kevin Griffin or something. And they would take explorers and go down the Fitzsimmons, like under from the mountain that like, it's the river that runs out of Whistler and Blackcomb. So yeah, it gets gnarly, like, and it's like, you know, dirty water. You can't even see through the ground or anything. And they're just in like bathing suit, you know, like no, not even a life jacket on, just like, and man, dude, rivers are gnarly. It does go wrong pretty quick. Like, but man, yeah, even on stunts, it's crazy. Like there's been occurrences like last year, this one dirt bike girl, like sad to say, but she just passed away, like end of the shoot. They were on like a motorbike shoot downtown Vancouver, and they had already done the shot. And then she's going back to ones. And it was something to do with, they don't know if it was like a heart attack or like the bike malfunctioning or something, but she just like full pin throttled into this building and shot into the lobby, and just like super gnarly. Like shit does happen still for sure. And she was like a professional bike rider. Like, Jesus, you just can't even know, you know, it's like super gnarly. So, I mean, that's why you try and have people like Buff there that have just seen so much of that and understand how to keep things safe so well that it does help. Like it's a huge thing to have safety on set. And Buff's like, dude, yeah, Buff is such a legend, dude. That guy, man, he introduced my parents actually. That's like how they got together and got married and then had me. It was all because of fucking Buff. So like I owe him everything. I owe him my life. That dude's a legend.
No way.
Yeah.
What a
super
sick. What a small world. But okay, before we dive into maybe some Buff and some more Avalanche stuff, your stunt work. So what movies have you worked on in the past? Any notable films?
I don't know. in quite a few. Like I honestly need to almost pull up a list because I just forget all the time. But I do a ton of like kid stuff, especially because obviously right now I got a dirty old beard on. But if I shave, I look pretty young, and I double like I went to like the Tooth Fairy with The Rock. I was like a little kid flying under his arm, getting picked up by him. Did like a pretty cool one. I think it was called Lemoncello's Library or something like that. And I was a werewolf in that one. I had this crazy like mechanical head on, and I was like running around eating books, like pretending to like munch books and stuff, making all these weird wolf noises, running down spiral staircases. Did a RoboCop scene. I was actually like a 60-year-old man in that. They shaved my head, gave me a fake beard back then because I couldn't even grow one then, and took a couple fake bullets. Yeah, like there's been some was in the new Sonic movie and like a bar fight. Just like yeah, that one was pretty cool actually, because Sonic just rips through the bar and like beats like 40 of us up at one time. So we're all just like getting beat up by nothing because it's CGI. That was pretty crazy.
So you just have to act it out.
Yeah, exactly. There's a ton of acting for sure, which is pretty funny. I did a recent one in I think it's called Upload. I don't know what it's on. It's not on Netflix, but it was on like maybe Prime or something. And tons of people were hitting me up because I actually was a stunt actor in that one. So I'm playing myself. Whereas normally I'm like a stunt double and I'm playing another actor. But that one, like, I think when they sent me the sheet, it was like, oh, we're looking for a dirtbag. And I was like, perfect. Like I got a huge beard, like the hair is super long. And so I got to like say a bunch of lines in that one. And that was pretty cool to actually have to like study lines and get a bit of acting involved with it. So yeah,
do you have a preference? Do you like
few.
one more? Like, do you like one more than the other? Or?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends. Like I haven't really done any like super cheesy stuff where I'm like talking in it, but I could kind of see it being a little weird. Like it's crazy seeing how much work a lot of the actors put into it. Like they're just doing scene after scene all day, and they got like the lines dialed, and they're like fake crying and doing all this like dope stuff that I feel like I'd have a pretty tough time doing. So it is kind of cool when you're just like, oh, like, you got to fall down the stairs. Like, I mean, for me, it's pretty hard to like fall down the stairs and not actually fall down them. You know what I mean? So it like gets done kind of quicker, as if I was like trying to say a paragraph in front of 40 people, like doing some acting. I feel like I'd probably take a couple more takes out of that.
Yeah, especially like when the paragraph starts, like the dialogue is like you have to start positive, but then you have to build up some sort of emotion, and at the end you need to cry. It's like, how do you do that? But like you said, when you have to throw yourself down some stairs, you're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, and you get, it's like you get a pretty fat adrenaline rush doing that kind of stuff. And like, I don't know, some of the quicker, I definitely prefer like the quicker, kind of more say like some of the gnarlier stuff. You really can't do a lot more takes. I mean, stair falls, you can film it over and over again. You don't want to, but sometimes they will make you. And then there's other, like I've tackled dudes through windows and stuff, and those ones are pretty sick because you're like, you do it like once or twice and you can't even do it anymore. Like like the one was we were at the Woodward building in downtown Vancouver, and we're up in the penthouse, and there was like 4 of the same actor, because they had like a photo double, and then they got the regular actor, and then they had 2 stunt doubles. So me and this other guy were both the same guy as a stunt double, because he was like fighting himself in the movie. I guess he's got like this inner dude that he's like fighting with, and he actually comes real. So I had to tackle myself basically through a huge window, and it's like the penthouse of like this building I'd never be in regardless, so we're hanging out, sick view, super nice. And then like I think we only did one take. Like we literally tackled them once through the window, and they were debating on doing it again, and like it was just a huge setup, and the shot was good enough. So those ones are pretty
sick. What's the craziest stunt you've ever done?
Oh man, I get that one a lot, but it's hard to say. Like, I honestly think some of the gnarliest stunts are like big stair falls, because I mean, I've done like a lot of cliff jumping stuff. Like one time we were jumping at White Cliff in West Van, and I think there was like 8 or 9 feet of water, and we were jumping like 50 feet into it. So that was like kind of tripping my brain out in that sense. But I guess the physical like I was looking it up after, obviously, because I was tripping out that we weren't even getting close to the ground. But apparently you can jump off an 80-foot cliff into 10 feet of water and it's like totally safe. Which to me, that didn't really make sense. But so that one was kind of gnar, but I don't know. Nothing like super, super extreme. Like the craziest one I've heard of is my dad diving off the Mamplam Falls, which is like maybe like 70 feet or 75 feet. And he just swan dives off it into this like extremely high flowing river. So you can't even see anything in the river. And he's just like, it's in this old movie called Extreme Ops. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's pretty cheesy, but it's sick. They go to like Russia and they're like boarding and they're getting chased by avalanches and there's like helicopters everywhere. But that stunt is probably the craziest one I've ever heard of, I think.
Damn. Is your dad like a little bit of is he like a legend in the, you know, in the stunt community?
Yeah, they definitely know. Like, it's pretty funny. I mean, nowadays it's getting a little better, but anytime I work on a set, it's like, oh, you're Dave's kid. Like everyone knows my dad. It's crazy. Like as I said, the movie industry is pretty small, especially in Vancouver. But I'll be walking around set, and as soon as I get in a conversation with someone, like 5 minutes in, they're like, "You Dave's kid?" Like, you know, it's just like they just pull it out, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that Dave's my dad. He's an our dog.
I'm an individual. I'm
yeah."
Oh, you're just hanging out in your dad's shadow, and I'm just totally kidding. I'm hoping that do you want to out stunt your dad? You know what I mean? Sometimes does that motivate you at all? You're like, I want to outdo my dad.
For sure. But it's honestly like a pretty hard feat, which is kind of crazy. Because like even dude, he's like 63, as I said, and we go to Malaysia and we found this cliff, and it's like we were kind of like checking out how deep it was, but obviously you don't really know. And he just dives off at first jump. Like he doesn't even like put his feet in first. He's like head first jumping off this cliff. And I'm just like, I don't know if that's like being ballsy or just kind of dumb at the same time. Like, it's just like, for me, it's hard to, like, I wouldn't dive off that without knowing how deep it is, you know, like that's just who I am. So I'm always kind of battling with him, you know, trying to get gnarlier than him. And it helps for sure. Cause I'm doing a lot of stuff. And like, he used to bring me out to Ziggy's Meadows when I was like 8 or 9, and we'd build backflip jumps like out in Booterville, you know, like the little jump spot where everyone goes. And I was just like a tiny kid. Like he would build me a jump, and he's just telling me like, yeah, just like huck it, you know, like just go off and huck backwards. Like, so yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of trying to outbeat him, but in the same sense, I'm just having fun with him, and it's always going to be gnarly, basically.
How long do you plan on doing stunt work for? Like, is this for forever job, or is this kind of like short term? Or
I mean, a lot of people do end up fading out of it, and they'll do a lot of like coordinating, like be the stunt coordinator where you're like finding the stunt man, or per se, like, I don't know, like my dad he's like a key rigger. So he mainly rigs stunts nowadays. So he's just like doing tons of rope work, and he builds like pulley systems to fly a witch around a room, and just like some pretty cool stuff there. So I definitely have been kind of dipping my hand more in that side of things, but it'd be hard to say no. Like if I'm in good physical shape and I get offered a job, it's going to be hard to say no to. Like and I usually try and be pretty good with who I know. Like I know who I'm working for. Whereas a lot of dudes will just, I don't know, like there's certain shows where I wouldn't want to be on per se, because they're kind of known to be gnarlier, and they'll like we do like ratchets and air rams, and sometimes the coordinators are like, if they're a gnarly dude, they'll be like, oh, you don't really need any pads, or whatever. But there's like some other dudes that will be really into like, you know, you got to keep your body good, because it's not worth like people just get work sometimes, man, like falling down gnarly stuff, and you like blow your knee out, and then you can't work for a couple months because you tried this one thing that they probably could have put a pad on, but you end up like hitting the concrete. I don't know. So I'm definitely like picky and choosy with the jobs to just try and like long last my ability to be able to do stuff. Cause I always want to be, you know, active and stuff. Like same with my dad. He's just kind of, yeah, it'd be sweet to just, I feel like I'm going to dibble and dabble with stunts my whole life though. Cause it's so good. Like once you're in the union, and it takes a lot of work to even get to that point. So it's definitely a good thing to have. for
Yeah,
sure.
you gotta mitigate your risk, especially like you personally. From me looking at the way you navigate your life, it's very active. So if you
Yeah,
were to have like a really bad injury, I think that you would be like, damn, like I shouldn't have just done that. I should have done the pad and stuff. So you want to at least be looking at the risk from all angles and then be like, I'm accepting the risk and I'm willing to do this, and not just be, working for some sketchy company and you get
exactly.
put in the hot seat and you feel like you're just obligated to do it to make the show go on.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's never really worth it to get, but it's in the same sense. Like nowadays, it's getting better. Like back in the day, they would just like even in Colombia per se, like my dad's been going down there because he kind of started a stunt union in Colombia. But when he would go there, they were doing like, people get paid like $50 and they do a full body burn. And the guy's like not even gelled up properly. He's got like gnarly scars. Like that's like scars for the rest of your life, and you get paid $50 to like light your entire body on fire. Like that shit is just gnarly. So it's definitely like Western world, working in Vancouver, they tend to keep you pretty safe. Like the coordinator doesn't want to break you off most of the time.
Okay.
And then if they're your buddy, it always helps too.
We need a pro tip, because you've mentioned a few times jumping downstairs. What's the safest way if you had to? It's a bad situation, but for whatever reason, you got to jump down some stairs. Do you have a tip on how to jump down them?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to say momentum is pretty key. Like, obviously, when you stop on an object, it's going to hurt more, right? So you're kind of trying to keep momentum going down, which helps, like you don't want to like half-ass and like just like it's even like snowboarding. Like you want to be in the moment and kind of stay in control while you're doing it, which is hard to think of when you're falling downstairs. But it's like you definitely think about how you want to fall first. You're not just like, all right, like take one, I'll just jump in here and see what happens. You're kind of like, okay, like I'll trip here, I'll hit like usually try and wear like some elbows, maybe a back pad if you can like fit it in, if you're not wearing super tight clothes or whatever. Like it all depends on the wardrobe. But yeah, so you'd be like, oh, like put your arm there first, and then you flip and you'll probably hit those 2 stairs with your back, and then you come up and like maybe try and put a foot down in the middle. And then like realistically, you don't want to like gap out either. You kind of want to stay with the stairs, so you're not like bouncing off them as much as you can. You try and like ease the drop, and like when you hit them, you're like kind of sucking it up. And yeah, like that's, I don't know, that's a little confusing what I just said for sure. But if you kind of deassemble that and think about it before you fall down the stairs, it could help.
Well, here's the thing is that stairs are typically very consistent. So there would be a formula that would be pretty consistent with how to limit your risk when you're jumping down the stairs. Like, you're not jumping down like an obstacle with like a bunch of different angles and drops and stuff like that. Like a flight of stairs is consistent. So there's definitely a best way to do that. And I mean, you said sometimes you do it with no pads though. I like that.
Well,
seems nuts.
It kind of depends. Like, I mean, falling down a set of carpet stairs is pretty relaxing, honestly. Like if it's got a nice thick carpet on it, it's pretty good. But the worst ones I've seen are girls, because they get like, they'll be in high heels and a dress, and then they got to fall down these stairs, when usually we're just wearing whatever, like a hoodie or like a blazer, and you got jeans on, like you can hide pads well. But the girls are like you're like running in high heels. Like I can't even do that. Like they're doing like chase scenes, and like, yeah, you fall down the stairs and you got this crazy dress like flipping up, so you don't want to have any pads on. But I mean, nowadays it could be like anything. Like if they want you to do a huge stair fall with no pads and it's the only option, then I'm sure they would even try and like build a set of stairs with some padding under them or something. Like maybe build like a concrete set of stairs out of pads that looks like concrete. And there's enough editing these days, you can make it seem better. Or like I've even seen where coordinators will take one shot and split it into a bunch of different clips. So say the girl's falling down 30, 40 stairs, you take like a 5 set of stairs and you get her to fall over and over again. And then you just overlay the footage to make it look like she's falling down a massive set of stairs.
Editing.
Yep. Definitely helps. Definitely helps in the stunt world for sure. Like car hits, man, like those are pretty gnarly too. I've never done like a full, like I've had buddies where you got to jump and you backdrop into the front windshield. And that's like the way to make it soft. But that's like, it's definitely gets pretty gnarly, man. Like you're like jumping into a car going like 30, 40K at you. And then you smash off the windshield. And I have a funny story about that actually. So my dad's buddy, he's training to do a car hit and he smashes off the window and he kind of had to like flip over the car and land on his feet because they wanted him to be like a superhero kind of move. So he's doing this for like weeks on end, just training, like running into like blocks and bouncing off them on purpose and just trying to like get the movement down. And then the stunt goes good. He kills it. But like a week later, he's riding his bike in Vancouver and gets hit by a car, like for real. And he just literally, he said that his brain just snapped and he just like back into the windshield, flipped over the hood and fucking landed on his feet. And the driver just lost his mind, like just like thought he had killed this dude. And the guy's just standing on the street. Like, I don't know, his bike might've been messed up, but just insane. Like that's when it really comes into hand, you know? Holy.
The stunt world providing. Oh, damn. That is a hot story. Imagine hitting homie and you look in your rear view mirror and he's standing. You'd be like,
yeah, just like,
you'd be like, I hit Jesus. I definitely just hit Jesus.
Oh, yeah. And I think the driver was also like probably just scared as hell and worried. But my dad's buddy's just such a badass. He's like, I'm good. You're good. Like, if you fix your windshield, you know, like, we can just walk away. We can go home.
Okay. I need to know who's the GOAT in stunt world? Like, is Jackie Chan, from what I heard, which I know nothing, I heard he did all of his own stunts. And when I watch old Jackie Chan movies, I'm like, holy shit. Is that true? Is that rumor? And who's the GOAT?
I would say the GOAT is probably Jackie Chan, because that dude, like when you watch his old movies, man, like he does some gnarly stuff. Like my dad's worked with him back in the day and he will full on beat himself up. You know what I mean? Like my dad, even I was talking to him like not too long ago about it. And he's like, I don't think Jackie Chan's gonna be walking for too much longer. like he's had some gnarly spills and just like, I don't know, that really does not happen anymore. Like I've seen a couple actors that end up doing their own stunts, but if it's like flipping off a 2-story boat and like bouncing off the middle level and you got to like land in the water, you know, like most actors aren't really trying to get down that crazy. But I'm pretty sure that dude was so genuine that he was kind of about like, he's like, if anyone gets hurt, it's going to be me, because it's like me in the movie and I don't want to put anyone else in danger. So he was just such a legend that he's like more worried about other people than himself, basically. So
Jackie Chan, man, pulling through again.
Dude, he's pretty sick. Like I don't know. There's a couple pretty gnarly stunt guys, but I think he probably takes the cake for just, and he was in that era, you know, like I don't even think you'd be allowed to try that anymore. Like maybe if there was some other Jackie Chan rising up and like, if you wanted to hire him as an actor, you had to let him do that. But actors sign contracts and they're like I've had buddies that are actors and they like, I'm doubling them and they can't even go up the mountain because they're not allowed to like compete in physical activities really, because if they get hurt, the movie's done, you know, like they got to wait for them to heal basically.
Totally.
So I've seen that before too. Like, I don't know, maybe he was just in that golden era where like I don't think anyone's really gonna pass him at this point. He just had the time and the place and the nuts to send it.
All hail Jackie Chan.
Yeah, straight up, dude. Legendary. I should probably watch a couple of his movies again. That guy is too sick.
Yeah, get some inspiration.
Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely, if you watch like his technique, you know, he's also really good at martial arts, which I feel like martial arts, and he's probably taken like jujitsu and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
even like I used to do a lot of martial arts when I was a kid, and there's a lot of like tuck roll techniques,
No doubt.
which probably has helped me in snowboarding. And I'm to take this into a little bit of a more snowboard approach. I'm imagining that your stunt career has helped you mitigate your injuries on a snowboard, because you're probably like, without you knowing, you're probably really good at like air awareness and like if something's going wrong, how to like tuck and roll and get out of it, where some people are just not that coordinated.
Yeah, I know what you mean, for sure. It definitely helps, man. Like, I would even say, I mean, like how you're saying before, like the gnarliest stunt I've ever done, I've probably done, like, put myself in more danger snowboarding, I would say. Like, some of the situations you get into are definitely like, because, you know, it's like, you can read a set of stairs, but you never like fully know if you're gonna like have that great time on the board, like on the snow even. So you're like kind of always assessing what's happening while you're riding, as opposed to when you do stunts, you're sort of just like, you just like grind and go, like, you know, but you're also not worried about it while you're doing it, really. So snowboarding is like, I feel like so much of that, like you're just thinking a lot about what could happen and then trying to like, yeah, like keep those situations as low as possible. But I think it has helped too, for sure. And just the falling in the park and rolling around, definitely.
And when I think about you, because I've known you for a long time, I think about you wearing a helmet sometimes and wearing a helmet not sometimes.
Yeah.
Why the back and forth?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I had a point in my time where I would only wear a helmet all the time, but I feel like recently, if I'm like going up, like even say 2 weeks ago, the park was like almost solid ice. Like, it was kind of like crazy how icy it was, like similar to probably some East Coast parks when you're like riding and it's like feels like the rail is softer than the snow. You know what I mean? And in that sense, I just wear a helmet because like if I'm gonna catch my edge, you never really know, right? Like heel edge catch on a jump or something, you just smoke your head. And then this last week has been pretty soft. So like even today, I wore no helmet, but I'm definitely like aware of it, you know, like you're thinking that you're like, you don't just like completely disregard it and just like do the same stuff. Kind of like I'm always kind of like, oh, I don't have a helmet on. Like, do I really want to push myself with no helmet? Which I normally don't, because it's just, yeah, like if I'm trying new tricks or if I'm doing something that I haven't done in a long time, or obviously like when you're hitting the big jumps in Blackham, you're supposed to wear a helmet. It's like a mandatory helmet thing. So yeah, like it definitely is a bit of back and forth, but I do feel like back in the day, I used to think a lot about like not wearing a helmet when you're riding POW because it's so soft and stuff. But I'm almost more sketch on riding with no helmet in the POW because it's so unknown. Like that lump could be a rock. It could be like, you know, like it's just like in the park, it's super easy to like know what you're riding and like easier to mitigate your risk, I would say, than in the powder. Because in the POW, it's just so much more like kind of abrupt and at you when situations do happen that are shitty. So yeah, that's been a pretty big thing for me too. Like say I'm going to just do some turns in Chocolate Bowl and I'm like not even, you know, we're riding like 30-degree, 35-degree slopes. Buddy's got his girlfriend, you know, like probably gonna ride with no helmet just because it's a little annoying with all the kit on and trying to get everything sorted. But pretty much any time that I'm like doing something where I feel like my limit is being pushed, I'm gonna have a helmet on because it's just so easy too, you know. It's like, I don't know, I find I'm used to it. I feel like a lot of people don't wear a helmet for so long that it's almost like unfathomable to think of wearing one because it's just so different.
Totally.
But I've kind of kept it super relevant when I snowboard, so I don't really have a hard time putting a helmet on when I think I need to.
I'm definitely pro helmet for sure. And I'm definitely not trying to bring up this stat to discourage anybody from not wearing a helmet, but we were going over at Baldface, we discussed helmets and we also discussed beacons. And the tendency to be in an avalanche when you have a beacon is a lot higher because people tend to put themselves at a greater risk because they feel like because they have this device, they'll be protected. And similar to a helmet, a lot of people get a helmet and then there's a lot of stats that say that you have a lot higher of a chance of getting a head injury when you have a helmet because you up your risk. And I'm not saying that that's a should be discouraging and be like, oh, you shouldn't wear a helmet. I think that like you should. And I think that the science is out that it seems to be a better option. But we also discussed mouth guards for a while, and most concussions tend to be whiplash and they can be resolved with a good mouth guard. I think that for me personally, I don't wear a helmet. I don't really have an answer why. Maybe just because of the era I grew up in. I did ride with one when I was a kid, but I do find they're really uncomfortable for me. And I can feel that added weight, but I always ride with a mouth guard and I try to be very selective with the terrain choice, especially with us having spent so much time in the Whistler backcountry. I feel like we do kind of know the areas and like, you know, what's when something's filled in, and Whistler does have a high tendency for the moisture to collect on the rocks. And then when it snows to fully bury the rocks where in it, you know, you go a little bit East Coast, you know, Lake Louise, Revelstoke, it's just a little bit of that lighter champagne powder. And there, you know, you think it's full pow, but there could be a rock and damn it. Like, I don't know what the answer is. I feel like, you know, if, you know, I don't know. I think mouth guards is a huge thing too, though. Like there is a lot of big movements going along with like, you know, wearing a helmet, right? Like it's a huge thing these days. And you see it a lot on like this social media and on the internet and like different people using them. And then I feel like a mouth guard is kind of like not really, doesn't really have any hype or like any like, you know, like tons of people have these helmet movements, but I do agree that mouth guard, like I wear a mouth guard when I do stunt work and I definitely have worn one, but I want to bring it more out to like starting to ride big lines because it's true. Like it's from whiplash and you clench your jaws together or whatever. And it's like, that's like a huge part of head injuries. So, I mean, I honestly think it should have like a little more hype when it comes to that. Our whole crew has been mouth guards for 6-7 years, I would say. And there's some guys that have like, they'll forget it or whatever, but I know I can speak on Mark Soller's behalf. We're kind of the same. Like if I forget my mouth guard, like I don't even know if I want to snowboard if I'm out there. Yeah. Just because like I know how much it helps to, you know, not get your brain all stirred when you have a mouth guard. And we do so many things that are like, yeah, the ragdolls, man. You do ragdoll and ragdoll and ragdoll. The mouth guard to me has been a big, I don't know. I would love to see head specialists like put that, like what it looks like to do a ragdoll under some sort of scope and study that and see how much a mouth guard helps. Because to me, I feel like it's like night and day from like when I first started. I remember ragdolling like 10 years ago and being like, oh, I feel kind of groggy or like that, you know, those mild symptoms of a concussion where when I have a mouth guard in, it does not feel bad at all when I ragdoll. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's yet again, I feel like I'm trying to be like, maybe I'm just being like an old dinosaur here. Like I grew up in the 80s and the early 90s when we didn't wear helmets and people used to smoke cigarettes. It's like, well, that doesn't mean that's, you know, that doesn't mean it's a good thing. So I feel like, yeah, like buy a helmet and wear a mouth guard, you know what I mean? But also, yeah, like if you're trying to, yeah, I mean, it's obviously hard because I think every person should kind of like, it's not like every person is the same in any way. So it's always good to decide yourself as opposed to someone like looking at someone else and just doing it. Like, it's like, why would you want it? You know, like, what is it going to help you with? And like, how are you going to, like, as you said, are you going to just put a helmet and a mouth guard on and go like try a triple cork off hut jump when you like haven't even done another trick or like, you know, and it's just,
you don't want to be like that kind of full send mode, but yeah, it's all different for any person. And I feel like it definitely is a good thing to talk about because yeah, like what we're doing, right? Like shit happens quick and that little piece of equipment can help not only yourself, but just your friends and like anyone going through those situations. Like it definitely is a thing to think about for sure.
Totally. It's something to think about. And then you have to weigh out the risk bound. Like you got to look at that for yourself. Cause I mean,
Yeah.
no one's going to tell you what to do. You know what I mean? And then eventually you could be like, well, then I should wear elbow pads and I should wear a back pad. And then I should wear hockey gear when I go snowboarding. And at one point you have to, and you can be someone who wears full hockey gear in the park if
Yeah.
you want to be, but you
Yeah, for
got to
sure.
like start accepting risk at one point. And hopefully that everybody who's listening to this, just take everything. I don't know, take it serious though, too, because damn, dude, you only got one brain and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
important to like, not put yourself at risk. Cause I mean, our average life expectancy is into the 80s, man. Most people that are listening to this are probably between like 25 to like 40 years old. It's like, we got a long haul in front of us still. So it's and there's going to be a lot of cool stuff in the future. There's going to be some cool stuff and there's going to be some really lame stuff, but I want to check it out.
I feel the same for sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the whole future, but yeah, it's definitely, we got there's so many more things to do in life besides snowboard too. And like, it's never worth it for like, if you could have put it on, you're just going to hate yourself that much more. So
totally. And I mean,
it's definitely good to think about. And I feel like people should, a lot of people, the way they decide it is like how they're going to be looked at from others, but they should just think about how they want to be, because in the end, it's like, sure, maybe someone is going to think you're like a Nort or whatever for wearing a helmet, but then like, it's totally your decision. And like, if you like, I don't know, like even like Rene, say, like he's wearing a helmet all the time. He has like the sickest movie. Guy's like an insane shredder, and it doesn't like, you don't even notice it. Like you don't like watch his riding. And you're like, oh, that'd be sick if he wasn't wearing a helmet. Like you're just like, damn, like that's dope, So like a lot of people I think are kind of basing their stuff on like what other people are going to think about them and stuff, where they should just decide for themselves. And if they want to, they should,
That was very well worded. I totally agree. Cause people like Chris Duffy after his head injuries, and I had him on the podcast. And if you haven't listened to that one, I highly recommend that you turn over to that one. Amazing episode. But it's just like he had to put one on, and nobody thought less of Duff when he was wearing the helmet. And I look at like Jed Anderson, same thing. Like Jed wore the helmet forever. But the one thing that Jed did is he stopped wearing the helmet, and all of those helmet kids must have been devastated. They're like, damn it, he was our leader.
It is true, dude. I definitely remember those days. And then I remember, like that was I remember thinking like in my head, like, whoa, like that's crazy that he isn't anymore. But I mean, in the same sense, it's just maybe he's like been able to mitigate the risk so much that he's not too worried about hitting his head. And I mean, like it's all a personal level risk. I mean, people can hate and get mad at other shit like that, but in the better end of things, it's just do what you want and it'll work out for you because it's what you want to do. And it's not like, I don't know. It's way more based on that. So like I still respect him even for not deciding to wear a helmet. It's just his decision, right? So I would never be like, oh, he's obviously an idiot because he didn't wear like he like stopped, but he's still just like an amazing snowboarder. And if you didn't want to wear one, then like do it and don't. Like I don't know, it's all you. Like
sounds like to me that you're not a very judgmental person, and the whole world could use a lot of people like that. You know what I mean? It's like, who cares what somebody else is doing? You know what I mean? Unless it's
like
truly affecting you. But something is like a helmet. It's like you should be stoked if somebody's wearing one. If they're not wearing one, it's up to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But like then you look at like the skate community, and you just don't see helmets. And to me, it's like, if anybody should be wearing a helmet, it's somebody who's concrete 24/7, especially if you're a vert skater, like, or you're riding transition. It's like, damn, like you take a and I'm imagining most of the people who are listening to this podcast do skate or have skateboarded and have hit their head on the concrete, and concrete does not move. Like,
Oh no.
it's the worst feeling slipping out on a skateboard and hitting your head, because it's just like, oh, that one every time. Snowboarding,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, at least if it's not bulletproof out, you're punching through, your head moves into the snow a little bit.
Yeah, like that's a super crazy concept for sure. Like it is, I've always thought of that as well. Like even for me, like I don't wear a helmet skateboarding. Maybe it's because I'm not pushing myself as hard when I do it, but it's still like so easy, you know. You hit a pebble and you're like dropping off the 8-foot, you're going so fast. You like it's just like boom, like snap the fingers and you're like fully out. I don't know, like concrete, as you said, is just so much more unforgiving than anything. And then there's like so many weird sports like that. Like I was thinking about it the other day, where it's like I mountain bike a lot, and pretty much anyone in the like no one rides a bike with no helmet. It's like not a thing. And it's kind of crazy because I don't know if it's because the culture has always wearing a helmet, so everyone just does. But like,
I
yeah,
think
it's
I have the
super trippy in
answer
that
for you.
sense.
I think that snowboarders look up to surfers and skateboarders who don't have a history of wearing helmets.
Yeah,
Mountain bikers and BMXers have always looked up to like moto, and you know, and moto has always looked up to BMX, and BMX always looked up to mountain biking. And well, for the most part, obviously, some people draw inspiration from whatever, a variety of
yeah.
things. But
But
you know what I
get
mean?
what
Like
you're saying,
you look
for
at
sure.
mountain biking and you look at moto, it's just like those two go hand in hand. That's the reason why they both have the same helmet. It's just like, of course, you're going to wear that same thing. But like, if you
Yeah,
skateboard, you don't wear a helmet, and then you go into snowboarding, there's your kind of your answer. You know what I mean? You've drawn inspiration from something that didn't value that sort of, you know, equipment, you could almost say, and it's just hasn't been used as a stylized thing, where I think it looks
yeah.
easy when you're like in moto. It's like, you know, I'm friends with that guy named Chris Foster, and it's weird because some days he's wearing a t-shirt, but he's always wearing his you know, he's always wearing his full face
Yeah,
mask. But
yeah.
it's like kind of gnarly when you see his like elbows, and he's wearing like a t-shirt, and he's doing like, because he rides like kind of big mountain lines there in the, you know, in the BC. I don't know if you know who that guy is, but he's psycho.
Sounds super familiar, but I'm trying
Yeah,
to
he's
think
done,
like he does like free ride kind of dirt biking out in BC.
yeah, but like he
I don't think I've
uses
seen
like,
any of it.
he rides like in Kamloops and Vernon and all those things, and he rides like
Okay.
those I don't know how to put it, like what they would ride all the buffalo off of. You know what I mean? Like they're like all the First Nations would like run all the buffaloes off those cliffs. He would like,
Oh,
he
yeah.
just like, he like dirt bikes down that shit. So it like looks like a line, like a line that you or me would ride. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
he just rides it on
And
a
he's
dirt
just
bike
on his dirt
instead.
bike. Damn,
It's
that's
like, it
insane.
makes no sense. It's like so gnarly.
Oh man. Yeah, that sounds pretty insane for sure. But yeah, I guess that does make sense. I mean, where the peers come from, and you just see it more often. And like, yeah, like honestly, I feel like helmets when it comes to biking is like a huge style thing too. Like it's not like you would ever think that someone has more style when they don't wear a helmet biking. But when they do, you can like have a sick helmet, and like that's like you know, or whatever. Like, so it's kind of
Totally.
crazy for sure.
Yeah, normalizing it, you know what I mean, is um yeah, it's a weird conversation, because I feel like I'm still stuck being like my dad, for example, like, don't get me wrong, favorite person in the world is my dad, but growing up, my dad's like, the whole craze for wearing helmets, bike riding came out. And my dad's
Yeah.
like, what the hell is going on here? You're bike riding to the store. You got to put a helmet on your kid. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, that's the type of dad. Like, he just was like, you know, like, are you like, we're not buying helmets for the kids to bike from the store to the beach or whatever. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's just how I grew up, a little bit more, you know, eat some shit
sure.
and not complain about it too much. But now it's like, it does make sense when you're riding some, like, dude, the triple corks and quad corks that are coming out now. It's like, I couldn't imagine doing those tricks that have so much G force built up into like a human body that like if you aren't wearing a helmet and you were to smack your head with like going that big and like spinning that fast, like please, if you're doing that world, wear a helmet. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're
I
going full
agree with that for
tornado
sure.
spins, man, you gotta be wearing the bucket.
Straight up. Like, I mean, it is good how like I feel like it's honestly like kids that are training, and most of the people I see that are in a high level of slope style these days, they wear a helmet and they wear like a mouth guard. It's becoming more apparent, which is good to see for sure. Because, like as you said, I mean, like if someone's doing a quadruple, like if they're doing a quadruple cork on a snowboard, you can't even tell if they're wearing a hat or a helmet. Like you couldn't even physically see the difference. So
Great point.
it's
Great
like,
point.
and honestly, with riding with the helmet on, I do find that if I'm like riding gnarlier stuff or do like it stays on better. If you have a really good fitting helmet, like I lose my hat and goggles a lot more than I lose my helmet with my goggles on. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So yeah, like if I have like a huge ragdoll in the mountains, I'd almost prefer to have the helmet with the goggles because it just like holds in better. You don't have to like hike back up and find all your stuff because it's all like attached to your head, sort of, I guess.
I
So
feel like
that's
your
my plus.
approach to snowboarding too, because this is an assumption, but I'm assuming that you make good money being a stuntman, and that's the reason why you can navigate your snowboard career differently. When there's like when I used to see you wearing a helmet, I would put that together. I'd be like, he also doesn't care about quote unquote trying to achieve this coolness. He's wearing a helmet because he doesn't give a shit. And that right there is the definition of being cool, is what you've talked about throughout this whole podcast already, is just like, who cares what other people are doing? It's like at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live in your own head. So it's like,
Yeah,
if you don't give a shit that you're wearing a helmet, just wear a helmet and who cares? You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a good way to look at it. Like, it's just one of those things that, and like, it's obviously one of those things that if you do it, the more you do it, the more it's going to make sense. Like, I've had times, I don't know, recently I haven't noticed this as much, but I definitely like notice when I'm not wearing a helmet and I'll like take it into, like what I'm doing. So if I am wearing a helmet and then not after the next day, it just feels like, you don't feel that confident about what you're doing in a sense if you're always wearing it, which could almost help with the fact of like, oh, I'm not going to send this trick right now because I'm not wearing a helmet, and it is a little icy out. But yeah, in the same sense, it's like maybe you send the trick with your helmet on and it's icy and you break your fucking hip. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
it's totally, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not like a guaranteed go, but I think one of the big influence, honestly, was Kevin, like Sandslone, because he kind of always wore a helmet. And when I was a kid, he would always, like, he was running Sandbox. So, I'd be like, oh, like, if he has a helmet, just give it to me and I'll rep it. And then that's almost like another way of kind of having motivation to wear one as well, I guess. Because you're just like, oh, I got one. Like, why not? It's like sitting on my shelf every morning. Like, why not just grab it?
And somebody with the credentials like Kevin Sansalone, who's an absolute Canadian legend,
Yeah.
that, and rightfully so, because he really is, even the older Kevin gets, is somebody I draw a lot of inspiration from. He's guiding at Baldface and teaching
Yeah.
avalanche courses, first aid, has done it really well, holds himself in a good way, treats everybody the same. And when you see somebody like him, a true leader of like snowboarding that's dope and has the credentials, giving you a bucket, you're like, fuck yeah. Like you're like, yeah, thanks, Kev. Like this is
For
dope.
sure. Yeah, like I've never like looked at a photo of Kevin like doing his like classic hand plant and like been like, oh, like that would be sicker if he didn't have a helmet. Like whereas like he does them back in the day and he's not wearing one, but it's just like it's him doing a hand plant and it's good style regardless. Like it's just like the way he's moving is sick. It's not really about what he's wearing in most senses. Like that's what I find too. A lot of people trip out on what they're wearing and they're so worried about like per se style, but realistically like riding your snowboard well is what gives you style, not what you're wearing, like I don't know. It's like
Kind of.
pretty funny.
You know what I mean? Like that to me is a gray area, because like some people it's like, yes, your skeleton can give you style, but there's definitely ways that I like will like somebody's style more. You know what I mean? Like when I
Yeah,
watch,
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like E-Man, when he was snowboarding and filming a lot of video parts, I liked like his stee and his clothing and his like kits. And I've always
yeah,
been, maybe it's a Winnipeg thing, but like kits growing up, my like mentors being like this guy named Chris, Kevin Griffin, Andrew Jeeves, Jake Kuzik, all of those people were key figures in my life that really looked in like attention to detail with what you're wearing. And
yeah,
especially like Jake being like one of my closest friends was always into like fits and colors and like, do you have red S shoes or like brown America shoes, or like, what are you showing the world with like what you're wearing? But I think
yeah, for
to
sure.
bring this back to the helmet thing, it's kind of like, it's been a faux pas almost in snowboarding. I feel like, oh, that guy's wearing a helmet. But I think we're moving out of that phase and people are still trying to hold on to it. Similar to like, you can't smoke in the airplane anymore. And it's 19, whatever, 50. And everyone's like, what do you mean I can't smoke in the airplane? Who cares? Or like, what do you mean I have to wear a seatbelt? This is stupid. And then you look back 50 years ago and you're like, people used to drive without seatbelts. That was so stupid. But then there's
Yeah,
people like
yeah,
me who are holding on to like, who cares? Let us wear no seatbelts and smoke inside of our cars and have a couple beers and drive. Like, we know now from data that it's like significantly safer to not do those things. And I feel
yeah.
like this is tough for me though, because I'm still going to just snowboard the way I've always done it. But for the next generation, it's definitely something that you should look into.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I mean, even with all that stuff, it's going in a good direction, I would say. Like wearing a seatbelt compared to not is obviously statistically safer. So it's like a good way to go, I would say. Like it'd be kind of crazy if we were like figuring out sketchier ways to drive. Yeah, I guess we might
Totally.
kind of be, but yeah, like I don't know. It seems like it's moving in a good path. And there's so many people doing different things. Like it's becoming kind of less like you wouldn't notice. I feel like, yeah, like maybe like when I was a little kid, I probably would have noticed when like if I saw a boarder film a part one year and then he filmed one the next year with a helmet, like I'm sure I would notice it. But
Totally.
like I feel like now it's really becoming less like apparent and just you just do it whenever. Like I've even seen tons of people film street parts and they like have a helmet on for one spot and then they won't for another one, and
Yeah.
it's just like maybe they thought they were gonna hit their head at that spot. Like it's like fair
Yeah,
enough, like wear one,
sorry to interrupt you there, but it just came to my
all
head there.
good.
Dara's done that on a couple times. And I thought that's been pretty cool. If you think that, there's a weird post on the landing and you're airing into that area, fuck yeah, throw on the dome piece. No one's gonna care anymore. Nobody should care anymore. That's the thing. It's like, and hopefully the big thing is if team managers don't care and nobody cares, it'll just be like there'll be people on the team with helmets and without helmets, and like who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's
for sure.
that's the way it should go. But drag this back into a topic that we briefly touched base on. John Buffery, you had mentioned that he got your parents together. You wouldn't be here without him. John Buffery is an avalanche specialist. He keeps the Western Canadian highways open through, bombing and avi control, and is one of the probably the best guides in the world to go out in the mountains with. I don't know if that's what he's doing anymore. I think he's too full on with the floods that we just had recently. He's like
Yeah,
helping reconstruct and redesign the highways here in British Columbia. So, the water can flow and the snow can flow and the roads can keep open and not be completely gone. But I
yeah,
wanted to kind of pick your brain about like, you went to Baldface 2 years ago for that Pat Moore course. I thought, and props to you for doing that, because I thought that was really cool. And I think that there's not a lot of young people that weigh in the importance of backcountry safety and avalanches and stuff. And I just wanted to pick your brain about like, where did that come from?
Um, I don't even know what the original like factor that pushed me towards learning about snow safety, but I mean, I guess it's just the environment I've been around recently and hanging a lot with like Will Kavasic. Like he's pretty qualified for any of my friends that we ride with. Like he's got a lot of qualifications when it comes to like courses and like glacier rescue stuff and like rope work and but it's mainly because like I think his main goal is to become a guide, like a full mountain guide. And he's training for his rock guiding. So he's actually trying to become a rock climbing guide before. But yeah, like hanging out with him a lot has definitely been a big thing. And then I think it's been pretty apparent just because my whole life I've been in the mountains. So like why not learn about it? It's like one of the coolest things I can think of doing. So like it's like pretty sick to just know more about what I'm doing. And then it all in all just plays a way safer route. Like, yeah, being able to like, I don't know, like read good layers. And I mean, fuck, like these days it's so easy, you go on like Avalanche Canada, there's so many good information centers that you can get info from and like build your confidence to like ride what you want to ride when you can. And yeah, like mitigate the risk because I mean, it happens. Like, as all of us know that have been in the snowboard industry for a long time, like people do die and get hurt doing what we do. And it's just like, if you're going to be doing it every day, I feel like kind of owe the snowboard like world, just like why not learn, like I went to school for, can't even count the years now, but went to school for learning, like, you're learning math and science and shit. And I like it's still cool stuff, but you're like not even doing it. Whereas I snowboard 100 days a year and risk my life 100 days a year, if you count it like that, and should probably learn more about that because even with like first aid and stuff, like I've always been kind of satisfied with knowing that like if a situation were to be bad, like what you would do. And I feel like it helps you think about it more as well because, you're like out there in the mountains and you think about someone getting hurt and comes off as like, say you're in a big crew and your buddy wants to try something gnarly and you're not even like sure his skill level is there, but it gives you kind of a backup of being like, okay, well, like worst case scenario, like I've dealt with situations and know somewhat that like like me and Will usually carry a pretty dialed first aid kit. And like, we definitely talk a lot about situations that could happen when we're riding. And it gives you that certain kind of confidence or backup that like, okay, like even if the worst case scenario happens here, we have a plan to get out. And that's kind of always what Will's been super keen on too. Like he always says, you plan for the worst, but expect the best. Like you definitely want to think about what situations that suck could happen, because if you don't, you're just like way more, whoa, like it's just way more hit to the head. But if you're thinking like he's dropping in here, it could slide there, like he might end up here, and if it actually happens, you're already like processing that fact, you know what I mean? So like it definitely is a good thing just for all types of snowboarding. And like you're in the park and buddy like fucking breaks his arm even, and you're like, oh, just keep it elevated, like how are you feeling? Like it's just nice to have that aspect in life in general, realistically.
Totally. And we just got back from that 7-day course that you had taken too. And yeah, Buff was there and there was just so much knowledge being passed around again. And it was, I guess to bring it back to what I originally asked you, I just thought that it was like really inspiring that you set aside a big portion of your hard-earned money at a young age to go to an avalanche and first aid course and learn about that. And now that you are out in the backcountry, this kind of like full on these last couple winters, and you're out there with somebody like Will, who's also dialed, it feels good when you're standing on top of something and you looked at the weather, what's coming in, the snowpack, your crew's dialed, you have the stuff. You're also a super skilled snowboarder and you just have so many tools in your tool belt to be dialed out there. And I mean, yeah, it's like a different beast when you get injured and you're away from the public and away from cell service It's like getting injured out there is fully what it would have been like getting injured in the 1800s. It's like, all right, like we got to walk you to the nearest small town and it's going to take us a day. And the stuff that we have on our back of our horses is all we have. Like our snowmobiles nowadays, it's like
and it can also, sorry to cut you off, but I feel like it really like helps the group you're with as well to be communicating about that sort of stuff, because I feel like as soon as someone's not stoked on what you're doing because they are worried about it, it just makes it like more of a heated situation. And like, you're not really trying to stand on like some line that, you know, your buddy's like pissed off at you for because he's like scared you're going to die. And you're like on this line, it's like in your head, you know, it's like, but if you're all like on the same page and like really well communicated, it just makes for a better everything. Like, I don't know. It's always good to have, for sure.
We went over that big time. There is just communication between the group that you're with, no matter what. Like if you're snowboarding, mountain biking, you're on a canoe trip, you're on you're in a relationship. You know, you can bring this really broad spectrum here. It's just like communication makes everything so much easier, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of the time, the introverts and the extroverts, they get the extroverts are overpowering the people that are like being really quiet. And that doesn't mean that that person doesn't have something really important that they would like to share to the group on a given day. And I think that, like, back to the communication thing, it's like, man, everybody on the crew has a voice if you're out there. Because if you're out there, if anything hits the fan, they're part of the group, and they're going to have to deal with the bullshit and the choices that you made. So collectively, you all need to realize the risk of this person doing this trick. And I mean, you also don't want to go out there with some worry-wart person who's going to push you away from pushing yourself, because there's a lot of fulfillment that comes out of pushing your riding and being there with your friend, watching them push their riding and doing this trick that you've seen them do in the park. And then they bring it to the backcountry and they film it and they capture that moment. Like, that is a beautiful part of life, and a lot of joy comes from that. But you also need to know that if you're out there with a dialed crew who can perform, it's like you want to give everybody a voice, and you need to ask those people that are a little bit more hesitant to chime in. Hey, guy that's on the back of the sled, photographer guy that hasn't talked all day, like, are you scared at all? They might be like, actually, that cornice over there on the left has been concerning me all day because it's been getting a lot of sunlight and I'm worried that it's going to break. And you're like, holy shit, I'm glad I asked you, because we weren't looking at that.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, anyone could be missing it. Like, there's never a wrong thing to say in the mountains, which is also like, it's hard to, like, some people, you know, you go out with some dudes that are like whatever, big names or something, and you don't like want to feel like you're being a bitch or whatever, right? Like, you don't want to be like that guy that's just scared, like worrywart. But it's never worth not saying it if you're thinking it, you know? Like, that's why it's so key to be keep communication good, because I mean, obviously you could be like that, say for instance, that filmer guy, like, he could be like, he could bring it on as the way you said it, which is a lot more like in a conversation sense, and you're like getting feedback and like talking about it. Or you could be like, there's a cornice here, like, we have to leave. And then like everyone gets all pissed off, and like, it's just like, you know, like, it's definitely good to keep a solid, like, positive communication within the sense of the negatives, you know, like, you are talking about something that risks lives, but you're not going to really get anywhere if you just get pissed off about it and like leave by yourself or something. Whereas like, if you're just talking to homies and you're like, yeah, like, that is a pretty sketchy looking cornice up there. Like, you guys see that? Like, have you checked it out? And then maybe a dude will be like, I don't know, like, have some other fact to top you on, and it'll back you up more, and you'll feel safer. Like, it's just could go any way. So you never really want to like come in, like, you never really want to come in thinking that you know everything, but you want to, because then you won't take in what other people are saying with like you know, with consent. Like, you'll just be like, oh, like, I know that that's sketchy, but then you also, it's kind of like you take all the 5 dudes in your group and you have this one consensus like over top of all our heads, and it's sort of like what you base the day off, because yeah, I feel like, I don't know, that's a pretty big thing too, because sometimes people just get heated when they're not happy with what's going on, and like other dudes are okay with it. But it's just like, all in all, communication, like proper communication, it's all going to be worked out if you're all talking in the same pace and like taking each other's information in evenly. You know, it usually works itself out, I find.
Totally. Like I feel like teachers, mentors, and guides and trained professionals, when you're out in the real world, everybody's opinion is not equal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But when
for
you're
sure.
out in the mountains with a group of people cut off from the rest of the world, everybody has a say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At that point, that person in the back, his vote maybe isn't weighed out equal, but it's still valued very high on my scale. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, okay, like you're really concerned about this. And we had a guide say, like, it was a really good, what are those speeches called? Case studies.
Oh yeah.
Craig Kelly's guide, who was there when the incident went down, and I feel really bad for forgetting his name, but he shared that everybody should speak up, because he didn't speak up that day, and there was a lot of stuff built up, intuition, gut feeling stuff he had all day, and he's had to live with that regret, that he's moved past that regret now, and I'm happy to hear that. But don't not listen to your gut. You know what I mean? He's like, humans have been around for millions of years, and the reason why is because we get that gut instinct every once in a while, and that intuition, and listen to that, because he wished that he had vocalized his concerns for months. He had months of stuff leading up to that incident, and not speaking his truth ended in something that was super life-changing for him. And I think that when you do have that gut instinct of like, something doesn't feel right here, and I mean, like, I feel like if you're somebody who always feels like that, that kind of sucks, but for the most part, people don't always feel like that. And if you feel like something is wrong, maybe it's best to voice that, and then gather the group, get somewhere safe, and talk about everything before you're, in his case, splitting up and you're already in harm's way. And at that point, he was like, if I speak up, he was the tail guide, everybody was in harm's way. And he said, right when everybody had stepped fully on slope and he realized every single person was in harm's way, that's when the Abbey happened. And I believe they had 15 buried and 7 passed away. That number could be off by a few here or there, but either way, it was just like, it taught me a lot to, like, every once in a while I do have a gut feeling when I'm in a valley between 2 massive slopes, and I'm like, I want to get out of here. And somebody on your crew is like, I'm going to use the washroom. And you're like, maybe now is not the best time.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, dude, like, as you said, that's a hard thing to live with. Like, when you know that you could have said something, but you didn't. And like, how hard is it to live with something that you say, but they don't really like it or whatever, it's like, that shit just gets forgotten in minutes. Like, but when you're thinking about something you could have said would have helped that, like a life getting lost, and you're like, it's just such a heavy weight to have on any type of person. So
Totally.
Yeah, it's always worth saying it for sure. And I think, like, thinking about, that as well, like when someone's saying something and maybe you don't necessarily want to hear that saying, it's hard to like take it in and be like, all right, like, I mean, I find in my life, I definitely relate a lot of things, just as in, if you put yourself in their shoes, right? Like you'll be, I don't know, like mad about certain things, but then you're like, all right, like, how would I feel if I was on the other side of this? And like, maybe you would feel totally different. So it kind of like puts, I don't know, it just helps with taking in information in those scenarios, and not getting aggravated and like taking it like, like, oh, like, I respect what that guy's saying, and we should all, maybe relay it to the other buddies if they didn't hear it. And communication in the end. Exactly. Like good communication is so key in literally any situation. Like it's pretty shitty when you go like on a bike ride and you're talking to some dude and you if you don't have good communication, and honestly like isn't even probably that good of a bike ride.
Totally.
But if you're like chatting, shooting the shit, having a good time, it just makes anything you're doing so much better.
Another really cool thing there from Peak, I believe it was Peak Emergency or Peak. Yeah, I forget. But the first aid group that we spent 3 days with, Jesse was his name. And he was our teacher 2 years ago. And I thought he said one thing that was really, well, he said lots of things that were really cool, but one thing really stood out to me. He said, have a check-in in the morning before you go out with your group. You get to the parking lot, you assume that everybody is in this like gung-ho, like let's get up there, let's get this back 7 melon on this cool gap that we found yesterday. It's sunny, we're all stoked. But he's like, have a check-in and ask everybody like, yo, are you a red today? Which means you're having a really bad day, everything's off, you feel like shit, you're upset, you're depressed, you've been fighting with your girlfriend, etc. Or are you amber? Like you're chilling, you're not in the best mood, maybe you feel a little off, you kind of have a headache, but everything's fine. And for the most part, you'll get through the day. Or are you green? Are you gung-ho, ready to get it? Best day ever. Let's get after it. Super positive.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of know how everybody is going into that day. I really like that because I just assume, because I film with the same crew all the time, that everybody is green. Or if I'm kind of red, everybody's red. But it's just like having that like transparency in the morning about how everybody's feeling will also give you some idea of why somebody might be like, I don't want to ride this, I don't want to go further, whatever. You'll have some insight into the reason why they brought that up. You'll be like, you know what, he is a red, he's exhausted, he's tired, like no wonder he wants to pull the plug at 4 o'clock and not build the step down late light, snow is not the best, or whatever. And that helps you kind of navigate the day a little bit better. So I thought that was kind of a nice little tip that I would like to work into our crew.
Yeah. And I mean, that just helps the communication as well. So like that's a huge thing. Like if you're, as we say, like when we're going out, you're with like the man boy dudes, like it's like life or death, like you don't really want to think of it like that, but if shit hits the fan, you are like that. So it's super good to just know how everyone's feeling and what the case is and all that stuff.
Totally.
Oh shit, we're good, we're back.
Yeah, little buffer there. No worries. Either way, that's awesome that you've put a level of importance on backcountry safety at a young age, because there's a lot of people that look up to you now. And another thing we talked about at that Baldface course is, making avalanche safety not cool, but like the standard. You know what I mean? It's like people don't fuck with you unless you are dialed out there or want to be dialed. There's always going to be a greenhorn, that's fine, but like it is cool to want to have a strong understanding of backcountry safety. And another thing to add on to safety, because I feel like we've just been talking about backcountry avalanches and stuff like that, is first aid. You know what I mean? It's something to know about avalanches and understanding slopes and reading the weather and all these sorts of things, but it's just as important to have a first aid course. So if something was to happen, you could actually tend to those injuries, because you are in the middle of nowhere and all you have is your emergency bag that you brought with you. And you said that you and Will kind of have one there. What are some things that you have in there?
Like quite a few. I don't know, it's kind of hard to list right off the top of my head, but like definitely a guides tarp, usually like some good splinting materials, a lot of like gauze and wrap and like whatever medical tape they call it. Like I don't know, even antiseptic wipes and stuff. And I don't know, what else would there be? Like
do you guys have the pocket mask
occasionally?
You do have it.
Yeah. Not everyone has one, but we usually try and like like, as you say, in the morning, like, it's another good thing to do if you're, talking to your buddies in the morning. We usually try and like make sure that everyone has a piece of the first aid kit, especially when we're doing hikes, like going up to the Tantalus. Like, Will would take it. He would take it all and put it in his bag and not say anything. But we like kind of make it sure that, it's not like one person needs to carry all the gear that knows. Like, we like split up the weight and make sure that everyone's carrying a certain piece. And then everyone kind of knows also what there is. So you're not like, just digging through Will's bag to try and find like what you would need. It's like, oh, like you take the pocket mask, you take the gauzes and tape or whatever. You have the splint, you take the guide tarp, like a couple bivy sacks or whatever. Usually always a lighter and some kind of fire starter or something, because that's pretty big as well to have out there. Like even riding resort these days, I've been kind of like, it's always nice to just have a source of fire if you're stuck out somewhere, It's definitely
Totally.
a big factor. So, but yeah, that helps too, because then all the people kind of know within your group where the medical supplies are, because anyone could be getting hurt, right? Like maybe, I don't know, usually it's not the case because we're pretty good at like trying to not have more people in dangerous areas than one when we're filming. But if there were a chance that, the two more experienced people got pulled off in a slide, you want to have the other people that are known, like, okay, like the first aid is on the back of that sled and we have this. So like, like two people get caught in the avalanche. Normally we would keep the most of the first aid stuff like down if we're riding a big line. Kind of depends what situation you're in, but we'd normally have some kind of like base camp spot that's like a good close enough to respond, but also far away enough that it's not gonna like, you're not gonna get caught in the avalanche he sets off. So that's also a good one, like keeping all your gear sorted and in a good spot. But yeah, like when it's not all in one backpack, then the one dude falls and gets in an avalanche and you don't lose all of your medical supplies. Like it's kind of spread out within the gang. So that helps too, for sure.
Yeah. A big one that, just to weigh in on the importance of this one specifically, in case everybody's, well, a lot of these people that are listening are getting excited for the winter and stuff. Obviously the beacon probe and shovel, huge. But just having some sort of thing to keep warm, you know what I mean? Bivy blankets, whatever. Like warmth is huge, like the biggest thing out there if there was an injury. So to anyone listening to this, if you have a tunnel bag on your sled, if you're split boarding, anything in the backcountry, make sure you have some sort of there's tons of different micro blankets, all shapes, sizes, and brands. But yeah, the warmth thing, I can't stress how important that is for yourself. The fire starter is obviously huge to keep the rest of the people warm, but if you're injured, something to keep you warm, get the person off the snow. Huge.
Oh
huge,
yeah. I think I did the first aid course with that. Was it Jesse you said?
Yeah, it was same guy. We had the same guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did it with him the years before. And I remember him telling this fact of like, even it's like when a soldier is shot in Afghanistan, the main way of death is from hypothermia because they bleed out and they get so cold. And that's like, it's like 45 degrees, like insanely hot. Like I would like sit there and probably like combust. I don't even know. And then that's happening obviously when you're snowboarding as well. Like if someone has a serious injury or like like broken arm, they're like losing their heat so quick. So it's that's like honestly one of the most important things is keeping the injured person warm, because that will keep them alive.
Totally. Yeah. Warmth is absolutely massive out there. All right. To sway away from the avalanche first aid training, which is super important, make sure you get out there, take a course, get dialed. Knowledge is power out there, people. So make sure you take a course, and props to you, Brin, for doing all that stuff. And now that you've been out into the backcountry, I wanted to touch base on two clips in particular. And I thought it'd be sick if you kind of gave us some insight into the day. The back three that you posted, the natty ride in back three over kind of the cliff, and the switchback side rodeo.
Well, yeah, those are two pretty like different scenarios. So the back three is on Cayley, like Mount Cayley on the backside. And That was like a pretty funny situation, even because me and Will's sled has been bogging a bunch. So we actually get to the spot, and the only way we can all get up there is with one sled, because Charles, my friend, he's got like, the brand new 2020 Summit XP, and me and Will's sled's bogging out, and it's like pretty deep day. And we're out there probably at like 6 o'clock trying to get up this like, I don't know what the roll is called, but you would know it. It's like right under the right side of Kaylee. There's a big jump roll that people build as well.
Okay.
I don't know. It goes right onto like Grizzly, or like onto the glacier there. So yeah, we're like there. We're trying to punch up this hill, and then don't make it. So I go up with Charles, and we bring the first aid kit first trip to stash on the sled, because he kind of built this little track. So we go up, drops me off with the first aid, and then Will comes up with like the ultimate size. Like, Will is like notorious for just carrying ridiculously big backpacks. Like, he always just has so much stuff. It's insane. So he comes up with his massive bag on, they double in. And we actually did have a plan. Like, I kind of knew I wanted to ride that line, but Will was scheming this other line that was like definitely a large cornice exposure. Like, it would have been, because you're hiking up the lines we were riding pretty much. So like, it's not even, the scary part isn't even riding down. It's like getting up there, and you're hiking under these like pretty large cornices. But that's why we went at 6 a.m. So we basically hiked up when it was like in the dawn of the day. And then we get up to the top, and it was starting to get hotter. And Will's like, I think he had actually ridden his line after me this day, because we had been there the day before, but we didn't really end up riding it. So we get up there, like we went there the day before to check it out, which is always a good thing. It's always nice to like take a peek before you just like wake up at 6 and start hiking up something in the dark, So we're
100%.
like checking it out, get there, hike up. He's waiting at the sled, and it was a pretty gnarly boot pack too, because I remember like it getting really like granular and shitty snow, so you couldn't really like kick in footholds anymore. It was like more or less just like climbing with your snowboard, sticking it in, and your feet don't really do much, so you just like pull yourself up off the snowboard. And then got up to the top of that line, and dude, I don't know, some of those things, they just like it's kind of crazy especially when you're used to riding the resort. You get to the top of this line, and it's like basically a takeoff, like so perfect looking, and just like you kind of know, you're like, all right, like you just go a certain amount of speed. Like, the landing's obviously steep, because I just fucking hiked up it for like 45 minutes, and it's very hard to get up, so it's steep. And then just pretty much had this idea to hit the cliff right in the middle, and came in and just like got lucky, just back 3 and landed it, rode away, and was pretty ecstatic. And fucking I actually figured that line out from an old it's a Ryan Patterson movie. Like, Ryan, right? Like Grouse Kid. So he had ridden that line years before, but I forget what it was exactly in. Oh, it was with Ryan Kenny. Him and Ryan Kenny made this like sick intersection video where he had rode a bunch of gnarly lines out there. And it actually, I saw the line the day before and was like, damn, that would be sick. And then we looked his video up, and he was riding it as well. So that was like a lot of the inspiration from that line. So like got the back 3, chilled, and then Will hiked up his line. He like went up my boot pack and hiked his line later, which he eventually decided to go up where there wasn't overhead cornice, because the line that we were planning for him to ride earlier was pretty, like, it was getting warmer, and there was sun on the cornice and stuff. So that's a big factor. You're not trying to climb under shit that's heating up in the sun. So he went up the right side and ended up riding this sick line. Like, Will's so stoked. Like, he's like the most hype man ever. Like, he'll do like 3 turns down a pow slope, and he's like giggling like a demon and just like having the best time ever. So like that, he's always sick to have out there on the crew, like super good stoke, and just always hyped regardless of what's going on. So he like rode this other sick line, and we're all filming each other. Like, I think Charles might have been on the long lens, and then Will's on the drone for me, and I'm on the drone for him. Like, we don't really have a filmer per se. It's more or less just like everyone gives it a go, which is
Dope.
kind of funny. But yeah, and then the one on the resort was actually just up by the wind lip, like the classic massive wind lip that everyone's trying to triple backflip last year. And we had found that cliff. I think I had hit it the year before. And I honestly don't know if I had really done any switch rodeos. I'm trying to think, but I feel like it might have been one of the first that I've done. Like I just had this idea in my head, like no one really does. Actually, I had been doing some backside rodeos off of like natural cliff features, and I found it's kind of a cool trick because you really don't need to carve or like have a lot of speed to do it. It's kind of more or less like a pop motion, and you just dip over your back shoulder. So I kind of thought in my head, I was like, this makes sense. Like switchback rodeo, just like don't need to go super fast off the cliff. And you kind of like, yeah, you don't need to like carve or do anything crazy. You just like backflip. Like, I don't know, I backflip flips all the time. That's like all I do in the summer. So it's kind of like a natural feeling, I guess, at that point. And yeah, just got super lucky with that one too. It was crazy. Like hucked a back rodeo, the switch one, and landed it first try. And just
I don't
got
think
like
anyone's ever filmed a natty ride-in switchback side rodeo that I know of. I think
I got
that's
pretty lucky.
and
The one I can think of, I've actually been watching this part a bunch lately, and it's in the movie 12,
yeah.
an old Absinthe movie. There's a Bodie Merrill part, and he does, I don't know, he might have like built a little lip or something, but he does an insane back rodeo into this steep line, or switchback rodeo into this steep line. And it always blows my mind. Like that part, Bodie Merrill in 12 is like the first clip. It's also a Gucci song. So I was obviously like ecstatic about the song. And then hit the first clip, he's like fucking cheering on this like 40-foot cornice in Alaska somewhere or something, like singing this Gucci song. It's like the most hilarious intro. And then he just front sevens off this like this cornice that you would just be like, that is a risk. Like just like,
oh yeah,
like so large, and just does the biggest front seven and lands right in the middle of the slope and just bombs out of it like crazy. I've been watching that part a bunch, and I think I got a little bit of inspiration from there too, because it's a good. Me and Will have been putting that on repeat. Like it almost comes out any night we end up watching snowboard movies together. We'll just gotta watch that part.
All those old Absinthe movies are so sick, and you can draw so much inspiration from those on loop. So
yeah.
To take this over to an event, I just wanted to get the insight for younger generation backcountry riders coming up. Natural Selection. What did you watch that event? Did you like that event? And what was like, you being the next generation of rider coming up, I was curious to know how you thought that event was.
I thought it was pretty sick, man. Like obviously it's like, it's Red Bull. Like it's gonna be a massive event where there's like, like whatever announcers and stuff. Like maybe that's not a lot of people's cliche. Like they're more into just watching like hammers on video parts. But I mean, I like that shit. I grew up like watching hockey, and I like don't even really play it anymore, but I'll still sit down and watch a hockey game, just for kicks. And that's like the ultimate hockey game as a kid, like watching these dudes ride like a hand-built POW course of like insane hits, and like watching Gigi do that, or Gigi, I don't know, I'm so bad. Like I don't remember how to say his name, but he does that.
Who cares?
That natural front seven at the Jackson Hole course, like just, and like knowing, obviously it's easy to, like a lot of people do know regardless, but just like doing tricks off a natural POW jump with like 2 feet of fresh snow on it is like super hard. Like it's not like it's not like you're doing a front seven the park, you know what I mean? It's like such a different way of like even just popping off the lip is like so different. And just to see that kind of stuff go down, and like, man, that was definitely a pretty crazy contest. And then Mikkel Bang winning it too was super epic. Like, yeah, just it kind of unfolded in ways I didn't expect. And then obviously seeing them ride Alaska in a contest was just like out of this world. Like I've still never even been to Alaska, but that's definitely one of my dreams eventually to get out there. Like obviously, like it's one of those places that seems so feasible, but it's also just so terrifying at the same time, where it's like you want to be so ready and like prepared and feel confident within my safety, as we've been talking about a bunch. Like I want to be good with like, like pretty on it with the crevasse stuff, obviously, because that's all that's out there. And like good with the Avi ratings and a solid crew too. Like you definitely don't want to just go out there with anyone and do that stuff. So the huge respect to like being able to put an event on in such gnarly terrain. And
Totally.
and to watch the riders shred so hard. Like
So the reason why I asked is because I thought it would be sick. Like, who knows what happens in the next couple of years, but I think that's an event that you could ride really well at. It'd be cool. There's a lot of wild cards that I'd love at that event. And if I had to pick one for Canada, I'd definitely throw your name down on there, because hopefully they have like in the future, they have a little bit of a wild card event that allows some underdogs to get in somehow.
Yeah.
Because it would be sick. It would be sick to get you in there. And sorry, one other thing to elaborate on, you were talking about Alaska there, and I can't not drop this. It's on a snowboard podcast, and I mean, I was talking to one of the coolest snowboarders in the world at that bald face course, Jamie Lynn, and they were going through all this avalanche stuff, and I asked Jamie, I was like, well, what was it like when you went to Alaska way back, in the 90s? And he was like, he looks at me and he goes, yeah, we didn't really have a beacon, probe, or shovel, just a Polaroid camera. And I was like, just a Polaroid camera? And he's like, just a Polaroid camera. And I was like, damn,
God.
Imagine so what they were doing with that is taking photos and then of the line overhead. And then when they got to the top, it would get developed, flap it around in the wind, and then be like, that's my line.
Oh my
With
God.
no beacon, probe, or shovel. I don't know. It was just like a different level of of course, that's absolutely psychotic, but like
different
badass
level, man.
And just,
it's crazy.
It was
so crazy.
So crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Nuts.
I have to touch base on this, and my girlfriend is coming home, and I have to make her some soup. So
nice.
There's no way I know, right? I'm trying to get some points here before I head out on the snowboard chase thing that I do. But Dope Industries, you've been a part of them for a long time. Obviously a family of mine as well. Some of my favorite humans. How did you get on Dope? Touch base on that.
Well, the beginning, I think besides, I used to get boards from Option when I was like really young through Kevin, through Sandslam. Like he would make like a 122 Pro model for me. I would fucking ride those. But Brockle was the first dude, the runner of Dope Industries, the brain behind Dope Industries. He was the first dude to actually give me a snowboard like years after I had not gotten anything for free. So I was just like buying stuff and whatnot. And he gave me one of his old dyno boards. And he kind of knew my sister as well, Kaylee, just from like, down the grapevine. Like she's lived in Whistler her whole life as well, knows some of the same people. So he was just giving me boards at that point. And then he basically got me on dinosaurs. And then when Dope started making snowboards, it just seemed to me like a no-brainer, because he was already a parent in my life, and he was doing things how I like, he's just doing it with such a feel and like a core, coming from such a core background, and just like, I don't know, he's just a cool dude when it comes to the industry we're in these days. It's kind of rare to see people like that starting their own companies and going anywhere. And the crew itself, like I grew up watching Dope 1, 2, 3. Like I used to watch those religiously, like back in the day with a bunch of homies. So it was almost like crazy in the start of it to even meet him, like it was like kind of like meeting a hero almost. And then you meet him, and he's just such a friendly human like person that you can just get along with. And like we've been on so many trips together now, and he's always so sick, and he's just got good vibes, and always has had a sick mindset. And I kind of like the way his brain works when he's making brand stuff. Like he really is like a perfectionist when it comes to what he does, and he loves what he's doing too. So yeah, like it all just felt so good. Like I'm always kind of the dude that just goes with the flow, but I feel like that was the flow was just I was on a wave. Like I just caught that wave and got on the flow, and the boards are sick, man. Like they're only getting better at this point. And I got a split board now from them, which I'm insanely stoked on. And yeah, just to see it grow is epic, and all the people along with it. It's been more than I could have asked for sure.
Yeah,
Always stoked on them.
I've known David for a long time, and E-Man too, and everybody that's ever filmed for Dope. That's like my whole family in Whistler.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Oh,
David's passion for snowboarding is like top of the line, you know, top tier passion for snowboarding and just aesthetics and what it looks like. And I love and respect it all so much. And yeah, man, it's been crazy to see. I remember when he just came up with the concept of doing this, and then to see him make
Yeah.
those films, and then the bolts thing, and then what he's doing now with outerwear. And he is truly like mad scientist mastermind, like
Exactly.
attention to detail, like everything was so thought out. Even if you thought something wasn't thought out and it was like, oh, he probably like it's all so thought out. Like everything
Oh yeah.
is like those movies, man. I remember coming into when he lived in Creekside for a long time, but like going into the editing room and like seeing like the intros to all those movies. There's like all those little flickerings and flashes. Like if you were to frame by frame or pause and then play and then pause and then play and just look at the screen, it's like there's so much in that, you know, like little photos of his friends
Oh
and
yeah.
dope lifestyles and old snowboard and skateboard movies and stuff.
It's
And
so sick.
yeah, I got so much love for David, and it's been really inspiring to see how he's gone about his whole brand. And I mean, for this podcast, I definitely have looked at brands like David's, which are few and far between, for like inspiration. Like what does this look like to make a podcast? And when I first started it had a different vibe and stuff, but to now I'm like, I look at those brands and I'm like, I want it to have a feel. I want things to look dope. I want the stickers to be sick. I want the hoodies to be like sick. I want the people that listen to the podcast to be real boarders that like live for this shit and love snowboarding. And that's what Brockle stands for me. And it's cool to see you on his company. And I'm sure he has a lot of appreciation that you're on that brand, because I think you really stand for what that is just like, who cares? Just go snowboarding and, you know, don't think about it too much.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, he's been so sick, and even just bringing together like all those, like riding with Braden, obviously, like I kind of grew up with that kid, and he's just like insanely talented. And like me and Brockle and Don will go on trips, and it's like, it's just hilarious. Like it's so much fun, and just like, I don't know, like the shit we get into, and just, it's sick. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like it's like more than I've expected. And dude, the boards are sick, and I'm loving them. And like the whole team is like insane, and everyone's like their own little fucking crazy niche dude. And they're like, oh, it's cool to see where it all comes from and how it all ends. And like people like it too, which is just sick. And like with Will on board too, he like board by numbers Will, he's been helping out a bunch. And just like, yeah, man, it's super sick to see where it's going and the ideas. And it's cool to be with such a tiny company. Like I feel like I really do have, like, it's just like so easy to figure stuff out together. Like you're not trying to like email tons of people and like, you know, like get through to other people and stuff. Like it's just like, I'll literally like go play pinball at his house and just be like, yo, like this would be a sick idea. And then like we're just like brainstorming together and shit. And it's cool how it's such a small, like branded world, and we're all like pretty involved with it too. So it just makes it that much better. Like he's always trying to get everyone to like we'll have like team meetings, and he's trying to get everyone down there. And like, we don't even talk about snowboarding that much. We're just like, just fuck around and play pinball and like have some beers. And then at the end, you know, we'll like start talking, and it just all works so well. It's like, yeah, it's super sick environment to be in for sure.
That's really rad. Yeah. Big fan of Dope Industries and everything that David's done for snowboarding, which is, yeah,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. Shout outs to David, Born to Lose. Who else are you riding for?
Well, I'm on my buddy's making this goggle company now. It's called Snowho, which I thought at first was kind of a crazy name, but it's like I think it's some other language. It's like Norwegian or something. And I've been down with it, dude. Honestly, they're like some of my favorite goggles I've had because just like really good magnetic lenses, which I couldn't really find before. Like I've honestly never even blown them out, like crashing or anything. Like they've always been stuck in the frame, and then they're just so easy. Like on POW days, I got the inside pocket in the jacket, or you just stuff in the armpit. And every lap, if you stuff your goggles in your armpit, they are never fogged. It's like the ultimate hack. Like I'll ride from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., like greasy, wet, mashed potato POW day. Everything's soaked. And if you put your goggles in your armpit every lap, they're good, man. Like I swear to God, it's crazy. So that's huge plus.
Pro tip.
I got a pro model dropping with them too eventually here soon. So pretty excited for that too, to like get to design my own goggle and kind of put some of my thought into it, which is sweet. And then
Snowho, check them out.
Yeah, Snowho on the Vans boots right now, which
Dope.
I've been super stoked on. Definitely hyped on the way they ride, and just like pretty comfy right out of the box. And
Which pair are you wearing?
I got the Infuse right now, but I think I'm getting a pair of like the Invade or something. It's more like the lace up boa, not with the power strap, but it's kind of like sort of what I'm just getting, you know, like I'm not super picky with my stuffs, and I hit them up real late in the year, which was not the best idea. But yeah, so I'm going to run those, and I've been stoked on them so far. They're like super rad boots. They got like 6 soles that come with them. Like I usually run like an aftermarket insole, but I don't even bother with Vans. Like they got the Ultra Cushion. It's like super dialed. Then I'm on the
dude. I
Union
didn't
bindings.
even have to do an ad for this episode. Damn. The Ultra Cush. Check them out today. Vans, baby, the best boots in the world.
Dude, hell yeah. Oh, amen to that.
100%.
Union bindings, been loving those. Yeah, got a couple pairs from them. Got the new split bindings this year too, which I'm super hyped to try out. Definitely stoked to see like, you know, a binding company that like I have run Spark R&D as the company for split boarding, but they're definitely more of a lightweight, sort of a simple binding. Like they don't really feel the same as riding like a park binding because they're so lightweight, and they kind of like lose out on little pieces here and there. So I'm super stoked to try these Unions. I think they're going to ride a little more like a regular binding as opposed to just something that's, I don't really care if it's heavy and it's on my feet. Like I'm still walking. So, I mean, just I'd sacrifice a bit of the weight for like a more comfortable feeling on the binding for sure. So I'm stoked to try those. What else? Yeah, like Salmon Arms, been running the Salmon Arms forever. Sick mitts. Hype. They actually get some of them made in Winnipeg, the Raber gloves. Those things are insane. Yeah. Oh man, I can't forget. Well, I'm running Dome Piece, which is kind of like we're like on the way to making helmets, but it's more of like a helmet movement per se. Like it's just like for now stickers and soft goods, but we try to promote. I know Cody tries to promote more of just, you know, he's putting out there that helmets are a good thing, and he likes to kind of push that aspect of it, which is super sick. I think like it's cool to put your time and focus into something that is benefiting other people, right? Because it just makes you feel like a better person. So that shit's sick. Got some Stance socks, been running Stance. Those are dope. I've been running BS Rabbit outerwear. For those of you that don't know, it's like a Korean-based clothing brand. They actually make the most insane regular clothes I've like ever owned. Like my girlfriend, she works at Aritzia, and she's like jealous of all my kits and fucking trying to steal all these like crazy fleece jackets they're making and shit. It's pretty funny in that sense. So I've been pretty stoked on their brand. And then I was running Bonfire as well. Oh, another one. I was running Bonfire as well, which is kind of more, I use that more like split boarding and backcountry riding, just because the BS is more of like a style brand, I'd say. Like it's like they don't really run vents or anything in their clothing, which I've been having a little bit of troubles with when you're
You have
hiking.
two
Like,
outerwear sponsors. You got to pick one, bro.
yeah, I'm definitely going to soon here, but I mean,
If
I'm
there's no
also running the
contracts,
hiatus.
dude, there's no contracts. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
no contracts. I'm just floating. So,
Well,
you
that
know,
Switchbackside Rodeo should land you a contract. 100%.
let's hope so. Maybe I got to post the full clip. I'm gonna take that teaser out and repost it again. But yeah, so been running that. Been running a bit of hiatus gear as well. Like the buddy that owns Dope is making his own brand, and I'm always stoked to support that stuff. And it's pretty rad gear, and the style's on point for that too. Like the full camo kit is definitely pretty hard. Goes pretty hard, but it's also in a sense like I'm not always trying to wear a full camo suit when I'm like riding in POW and, you know, possibly getting picked up by snow. I don't really want to look like a bush in the ground when you're fucking in the avalanche debris or whatever. So yeah, you know, that's like another way of mitigating risk, I guess, choosing the right kit for the right day.
100%.
Yeah.
Good.
For anyone else, I'm forgetting, like RMU, actually, I've been getting free beers from this bar in town, which is a huge plus.
Oh, 100%, dude. Free beer is the best. I used to ride for Pabst Blue Ribbon back in the day. It was
Man,
dope, but it's just like, yeah, flats of Pabst Blue eventually get kind of old. I'm happy to have transferred over to the crisp, delicious lager from Apres.
Hell
Gibbons,
yeah.
you can find them at any of your local Gibbons establishment in Whistler. Check them out today. Plug.
Oh yeah. They actually, when we were up on the Tantalus, the buddies from Gibbons, because all my buddies, like, we're pretty connected with like Alexi and stuff, and they dropped off a flat of beers into the Tantalus for us.
As they should.
Dude, it was insane. It was so epic to get, like, that was one of the best places to drink beer, because when you're camping and it's like -15 out, your beer never gets cold. It like gets colder, or it never gets warm. Sorry, it gets colder. So you crack a beer and I'm pretty bad. I'll like forget about it, you know, come back to it like an hour later. And normally it'd just be like total write off. And then you take a sip and it's like the coldest beer you've ever had. And you're like, damn, like I didn't really blow it this time. I actually left a beer for a good cause and it just got colder. So shout out to Gibbons for that as well. You know, doing the extreme beer drop offs for the boys. That was a huge. And they dropped Smokies as well. We got an extra pack of Smokies in there. That was
Gibbons.
huge.
Keeping Whistler alive and fun since day one. Big fan. Check them out if you ever come to Whistler. All right. I got a couple questions here for you.
Yeah.
These are supposed to just be fast. Because let's see here. I got 5 minutes until soup hour.
All right. Yeah, we got this.
It's my last night before I'm flying home to Winnipeg. So as we all know, it's like, you know, I don't know who's dating who these days, but if you come home and your partner's like, I'm gonna make soup for you after a long, like 10-hour day, if that soup ain't ready, I'm gonna get in shit. So all right.
Oh yeah.
All right. One piece of advice that you wish you knew when you were younger.
Oh man. Honestly, I think it's just more about like, yeah, I would tell myself to just be you, because if you're being the best you can, you're going to be way sicker to other people, and other people are going to see that you're just stoked on who you are, and it's just going to bring more of what you want to your life.
Positivity attracts positivity.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Next question. What's at the top of your bucket list?
Oof. Right now, I'm probably gonna say Alaska, as we talked about before. I have a big drive to get down there, and been riding a lot of steeper terrain, and I would be pretty stoked if it was steeper for longer.
Yes, my man, I love
So
this.
that's a good plan. There's definitely a lot to do. Like traveling and snowboarding is a big one as well. Like just saying that, you know, I still haven't been to Japan. Like just going places with homies to do something that is totally irrelevant to what you're supposed to do in life is driving towards for me. It just sounds like good times.
Well, hopefully you pick up another stunt gig with The Rock, and that can pay for your next few trips to Japan. All
Oh
right.
yeah, I hope so.
Favorite style back in the day and currently?
Oof, like rider, favorite style.
Border.
Damn, let's see. Back in the day, man. I mean, maybe it's kind of biased because I've been hanging out with him so much lately, but I think it's Kale Stevens, dude. Like that guy is so fucking gnarly. Back in the day, yeah, he's just like an animal, dude. Like the shit he used to hit and like just ripping around Buzz Lightyear style on the sled, doing like 12 o'clocks. Like that guy just, and he's still doing it. You know what I mean? Like I was riding with him last year and it was insane. Like just to ride with that dude, and used to watch him in movies, and he's just still so hyped and has such a good like vibe around him. And yeah, man, like Kale for the old times, I think I'd have to say number one for best.
Before you say currently, I'm going to intervene here just because I think this is kind of special. My first time ever sledding in the backcountry and getting out into the backcountry was with Kale too. It's
No
crazy
way.
to see him like going out there with you now. And it's like, many years after me. But when I was out there back in the day with Jeeves and Griff, I was like, damn, I'm out here with Kale Stevens. And now to hear you say that, I'm like, he just the gift who keeps on giving. Kale Stevens, shout out. All right.
Hell yeah.
Currently, who's got your favorite Steve?
Man, it's really hard these days because there's so many different aspects of boarding. You know what I mean? Like I do have kind of like certain people that I like that do certain stuff, but oh man, it's hard to say. Like for style alone, I'm probably gonna go with Austin Sweeten, because the way that he just like you could just give him a slope to ride and he just is so aggressive and like poppy, and just like you just like can see that he enjoys riding a snowboard on anything. And some of the new stuff, maybe it's the way that Lucy films it, but some of the new stuff he's dropping is like basically definition of style.
I
and
agree.
my phone is really blown. But yeah, basically definition. I'd say like that dude is on one, and he's such a nice dude too. Like so rad. Reminds me of Buff, like a mini Buff.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big Austin fan. All right, Death Row, what's your last meal?
Oof. Okay. I'm gonna say Barn Nork Thai food.
Damn,
Probably
hit him
pad
with the
thai.
Thai.
Pad thai.
Chicken, prawn, or veggie?
Well, the one at Barn Nork is everything. It's like it's chicken, it's prawn, it's got some meat in there too, I think.
Damn.
It's got a bunch of veggies too. I was eating pretty like veggie only for a while, but recently I'd go like right now, if I could get that right now, I'd just eat that thing so quick.
I'm almost gonna bail on the soup and just hit him with the pad thai tonight. You know what I mean? We got a pad thai place in town. It's so good, but I don't know. All
Damn.
right. Favorite snowboard movie of all time?
Oof. Oh, that's hard, man. So many good ones. I feel like I'm gonna go with like the movie I've been watching the most, like probably the most viewed movie I've seen. And I'm gonna say probably, I don't know. That's so hard. I feel like I'm gonna say Heavy Mental, just because that like I've just been watching Jason Robinson's part, dude, and that guy is just a legend. And it's like I'll be like sitting on the edge of my seat, and like my jaw is just like I've seen it already, and I'll still be like just totally mind blown, out of the like just ridiculous, out of the ordinary. I also want to say 13, like the old Burton movie with Mueller in it, and he has like 4 parts. Like some of the footy is just so timeless, you know? Like, oh man, that's honestly so hard to say. I just keep thinking of other movies in my head now, but I already said it and I'm going with it. Great
All right.
movie. Great
I like
movie.
First thing you'd buy if you won the lottery.
Oof. Man, that's hard. I don't know, man. I like right now, I want to say,
Snowmobile.
yeah, like I guess if I could say combo, like sled truck
Oh, yeah.
for sure. But
You
I
need
was
the truck
actually
to pick
thinking
up
in
the
my
sled.
head, helicopter would be insane too, but I'm obviously probably gonna die if I own one of those. So that's maybe not the best idea.
Yeah, we don't need you dying.
Those things are crazy.
Helicopters are crazy, man, and they haven't changed a lot since like Vietnam. You know, I flew in one the other day, and I'm like, these haven't come a long way. Where if you were like driving in a truck in Vietnam, and then you drove in like a new truck right now, like the Tesla truck, you'd be like, what the? These are crazy. Helicopters are still like, and you put the same headphones on, and there's leather seats, and you're like, what the? But
Oh, they're
nonetheless,
gnarly, dude.
they're cool. All right, worst trend in snowboarding.
Oof, worst trend in snowboarding. For me, I'm gonna say tight pants, dude. Tight, like super tight pants. I'm not a fan. Not a huge fan.
Those are fizzling out for like a decade. So you ain't offended anybody by tight pants. If you're wearing tight pants right now, it's like you just haven't got the memo.
Yeah, I just can't do it. Like, they're probably hard to get on and off. Like, why do pants need to be hard to get on and off? Like, that's like the last thing I want is to struggle getting my pants off, like just trying to.
I agree. The last thing I want is to struggle putting my pants on, especially if they were wet or damp.
Oh,
Damn.
yeah, dude. It's just no fun.
All right.
No fun.
Who is the GOAT?
Oh God. Just the GOAT. Out of anyone in the world.
Greatest of all time to you. You're an individual.
Yeah. Oh man. Dude, I'm gonna say Buff because he basically put my parents together, or my dad. I could say my dad, but Buff pretty much made me, because I don't even think my parents like each other, but he just made them go out and then they fucking had me. So, and like just the shit that guy's done and some of the stories he has of riding and like basically building split boards first bat. Like he's done so much for the world that I'm gonna say Buff. He's just a great dude.
Buff. I did not in a million years think you would say John Buffery as the legend. Another person who I've done a podcast with, an amazing episode, an amazing human.
Amazing
Buff,
dude. I love listening to that guy talk, dude. Love listening to that guy talk.
Me too. Humble, pure, from the heart, with
good style,
good,
too.
Good intention.
Definitely has good style too. Adidas tracksuits, fedora.
That dude, little goatee, so sick. Fedora, the best.
Love that guy.
All right, Brin, thank you so much for coming on. A huge fan. I love how this like acting world has intervened with your snowboard world, because I think that if you were like fully focused on snowboarding, like that was your only thing, it's like I don't know where you would be. I think that it would have rocket launched your career or whatever you want to call it way earlier. But I kind of like that it's just like not your focus isn't like constant social media and filming of snowboarding and like I'm trying to make it as a pro snowboarder. And now just because of your raw talent, it just seems to be coming together for you really organically, and it's like it's pieced together really well. And I'm excited for the future because I truly do think there's going to be some special Brin clips to come.
Hell yeah, I appreciate that, man. It means a lot coming from you too. Like I do think it's a good way of doing things, because you do one thing for too long and you just go crazy. Like if you're trying to make it and you're not doing it to have fun, it's like it's gonna kill you. It's gonna hurt your fucking brain. Like if you just have fun with it and grow your skill having fun. Braden is one of the first dudes I've noticed doing that. Like he has fun with everything he does, and the more you have fun doing something, the easier it is to get better at it, because you just want to do it, right? So yeah.
Oh, love that. Thanks for coming on, boss.
Dude, thanks for having me. Yeah, you too, man.
Excited to see more footage come.
Make that good soup, baby.
I'm gonna hit the soup. All right,
Oh,
peace,
yeah.
boss.
Peace out.
One job is waiting